Well, good morning, YouTube. Welcome to Highwayman Trucking and My Way on the Highway. I am doing a 34-hour reset here at the Pilot Flying J in Altoona, Iowa. I've got to deliver tomorrow morning, actually, about 7 miles away in Des Moines, and then we're going to head on up to North Dakota. But I figured it was finally time to do an introductory video, or the bio that all the different sites call for. Tell you a little bit about myself, who I am, what I believe, how I got into trucking, and what exactly I do in the trucking world. I promise I'm not going to give you the 30-year version of my life story, but we'll go back a few years and you know, give you a little insight into who I am and who my wife is and what exactly we do. So I guess I'll start with my wife's family. They were in the military surplus business for a very long time, about 41 years, I believe, and they had the largest retail surplus store in Arizona, and my wife managed that store for about 25 years for her parents, and then decided to go her own route and actually had opened up her own store shortly before I met her, and her mom and dad decided to sell out and retire, and so we were in the surplus business, I guess, is the end result there. We were in the military surplus business, very unique entity in and of itself. There's no other business like it. It breaks a lot of the retail rules, and it was just it was a neat business. It was a fun business. We traveled the world together, conventions, and just really enjoyed the people that were in that business. I love it. I sometimes still miss it. We were very lucky and very fortunate in that business. We lived a very good life. Things started to change, though, in the late 2008, 2009, 10. Primarily the internet. A lot of people were able to go direct to the manufacturers, which kind of cut out brick and mortar a little bit. It made pricing a little bit more competitive. And the business just changed and evolved, and it got to a point in 2013 with that and the compilation of the economy and everything else. We just decided to get out, and we basically sold off everything and closed the doors. And at first, I had decided, I thought, well, maybe I'll go be a truck driver. And went down to a couple of dealerships, and I wanted to buy a truck and get right into trucking. Well, as you know, that wasn't quite possible. The insurance requirements alone were pretty huge, and I think it was like, with no experience starting your own company, it was like $30,000 a year, and I don't think that's quite practical. And so I gave up on that idea. Literally, it was a 2-3 day idea. It sounded like a neat idea, and I talked to a lot of people. My father-in-law had grown up with a guy that lives in the Phoenix area, who has his own trucking company, about 50 trucks or whatnot, and I had talked to him, and he actually also grew up with the owner of Swift Transportation. So I had a lot of people to talk to, and I felt like I was kind of dissuaded from getting into the industry right off the bat. So I gave up on that idea, and I got this bright idea that my wife and I would start doing gun shows across the country and take our military surplus that we knew and loved and go on the road. So I literally, in about a day, traded my pickup in for a brand new Duramax dually diesel, bought a 40-foot toy hauler to live in. And of course we were going to keep our house, but I figured the toy hauler would come in handy because we could pack the toy section full of merchandise and then travel around and do gun shows. And after about 2 or 3 days of thinking on that, I realized that might not necessarily be a steady income, and maybe I should play it safe for once. So literally got on the internet, started looking around different ideas and whatnot. I thought, you know, I'm a pretty smart guy, I've got a good education, and I sent out hundreds of resumes, and I wasn't getting any response. It wasn't until years later I figured out why. But so anyhow, I thought, what the heck are we gonna do? And I came across oil field work. I thought, well, I don't know anything about the oil field, and I saw all these responses on the internet of people that didn't know anything about oil field either, and went there and were, you know, making $150,000 a year. So I told my wife, we're going to West Texas. It seemed a lot warmer than North Dakota at the time, and the oil fields were booming. And so she followed me out there in her car, and and I pulled the fifth wheel, and we wound up in Midland, Odessa, Texas. And as we went from trailer park to trailer park, they were absolutely disgusting places. Dirt, caliche lots. I could see where when it rained, you would be sitting in mud. And the amount of traffic out there was just insane. There was people everywhere, living everywhere. The Walmart there was like Christmas Eve every single day of the week. I mean, their shelves were just ravaged. And so anyhow, we spent a day and going from park to park, and it was terrifying. My wife was literally about to have a nervous breakdown. She was scared. You know, the life that she'd had for so many years was abruptly changing, and she put a lot of trust and a lot of faith into me. And we just couldn't find the right park. Well, in our day of mapping out where places we were going to look at, we actually made a wrong turn. And we wound up in a little town called Gardendale, Texas, about 10, 15 miles just outside of Midland and Odessa. And we came across this RV park, and it was absolutely beautiful. It's called Palms of Paradise RV Park. And we pulled in there, and they had this, cute little office building, nice concrete driveways and slabs, well-maintained green grass lawns in between, little picket fences in some of the spots. And the place was just like a godsend. And we pulled in, and they had one space left, and we'd take it, And so we parked our RV there, and wound up becoming very good friends with the owners of the park. And the owner had a brother who owned one of the largest rig moving companies in West Texas that moved oil rigs. And he had a truck leased on to his brother's company. So as that friendship built, I wound up getting a job on an oil rig working for a Canadian drilling company, and it was 28 days on, 14 off. 12-hour shifts, and it was good money with no experience. I mean, I brought home a little over $10,000 a month, but I hated every second of it. I literally hated it. And part of that's being spoiled. I came from owning a company and being the boss to being told what to do, and I hate being told what to do. But and it was just some of the most back-breaking manual labor I'd ever done in my life, and I hated it. So it came to a point where I was just done with the oil fields. I figured I'll go back to Arizona. We'll, figure out what I'm going to do for a living. And at that point, my friend that owned the trailer park, he says, "Well, why don't you drive my truck?" And I says, "I've never even really sat in a big rig truck outside of looking at them, for a couple of days." And he says, "I'll teach you. Don't worry about it." And I thought, wow, okay. So I got a copy of the CDL manual. I read it in about a week, and started driving. Went and got my permit. Drove with my buddy for about a week, and I think about a week, and had my permit. Rode with him for another couple weeks. Went down, took the test, and got my CDL. And I started out driving a 9-axle road winch. My truck and trailer was 63,500 pounds empty. And those of you in the business know that most of our trucks are road trucks are 80,000 pounds max. Every single thing that I hauled was 150, 200, 300. I was up to, I think, 324,000 pounds or something like that at one point. 18 feet wide, 19 feet tall, 21-foot rear overhang off the back of my trailer. Moving rigs, that was my day in, day out trucking life. That's how I started in the trucking world. I honestly don't think I knew what a legal log was for the first couple of years in the oil fields. Every week was 80, 90, 100. I think I hit 125 hours at one point, and made really good money. It was definitely a lot of sacrifice. I mean, there was a period of time where I went 6 months without, with only taking 2 days off. It is what it is, and you're going to sacrifice that time, and in order to make that kind of money, rather. So the oil fields in West Texas kind of slowed down, and I got the bright idea to go up to North Dakota. And it was like the first week of January. It was 35 to 45 degrees below in North Dakota. That was one of the most miserable experiences of my life, was those couple of months in North Dakota. I think that's where I hit my 125-hour work week. I mean, it was just insane, moving oil rigs. And so eventually I went back to Texas, and I thought, well, it's not as busy, but it's steady, and safer. So ran Texas a little while. Texas started slowing down, and it was finally time to go back home to Arizona. My buddy that had taught me how to drive a truck had told me that once you get your CDL, you'll always have a job. You'll never want it for work. And that was very true. Once I got back to Arizona, I really didn't have a problem finding a job. I went to work right away, and I went through probably 3 or 4 different companies. And I mean, I did everything from running, Super 10, Super 16 dump trucks to hauling wood chips out of the mountains to heavy haul flatbed work, just a little bit of everything. And I found out how scandalous some of these trucking companies were. They couldn't provide the hours that they promised for, in town, around town work, regional work, and the pay was just horrible. And I really hate dishonesty. I've always said I might be a big old jerk sometimes, but at least I'm honest. And these companies were definitely not honest. There was one that was a really good company that I liked, but every single week I'd have to fight for my pay. I mean, it was anywhere from a couple of hours up to 30 hours of overtime that they would short me. And I finally just I had my breaking point. I mean, it was horrible. And I'd met a guy that used to be a professional baseball player, and he had 6 trucks. And he seemed like a great guy, really super nice guy. And he says, well, you're a smart guy. He's like, I'd like you to come work for me and help me out with this thing. And so I did. And he and his wife were amazing people, very, very good people, very honest. They didn't have a trucking background. He had, I guess, when he got out of baseball, had become a freight broker, and that's how he, delved into the trucking world. And he had a contract hauling steel out of Mesa, Arizona, and it was regional work. So I went to work for them, and they literally treated me like an owner-operator right off the bat. They went off of my advice, what I thought, maintenance-wise, route-wise. I got to pretty much do anything and everything just like an owner-operator. And it was an awesome experience, and they were just such great people that treated me so well. I can't say enough about them. And it came to a point where they had lost their steel contract, and it wasn't through any fault of their own, just big business shifted and policies changed, and once the steel was gone, they kind of didn't know what to do as far as going over the road, whatnot. Didn't know if the money was right for them. And so he had actually sent me out to Tulsa to buy a new truck, bought an old mountain truck, and we were going to go over the road, bought a STEPDECK trailer, was switched out from the 48-foot flatbeds that we had, and went over the road for probably about, the first 6 months or so. And he wanted out. It was, time. He had some other things going on. He became a baseball scout again and was working for a big outfit in Japan. And the trucking company was just not something they wanted to do anymore. So he says, well, why don't you buy me out? And talked with my wife and decided, yeah, let's do it. And so I bought him out. And bought his authority, his MC number, and so on and so forth. And the rest is history. This truck here is a 2014 Kenworth T660. It is an old mountain truck. I've got I bought brand new 2017 53-foot STEPDECK trailer, and that's what I pull across the country. I will haul anything and everything. I'm huge on load securement. A lot of that when I was getting my license. My very good friend in Arizona had been a police officer for about 25 years, and 10 or 15 of those years were as a commercial vehicle enforcement officer for our local city. And so as I was learning, he was always a really solid go-to guy for knowledge and questions. And as a result, I'm huge on running legally and load securement and whatnot, and safety. So the YouTube side of things, over the last couple of years, I've followed several guys on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and I'm not that savvy with that stuff. But I'd always thought about, well, maybe I should do a YouTube channel. You know, I like what these guys are putting out, but I might have something to add, and perhaps followers, subscribers could help me out, help me learn more. You know, I've only been doing this a few years. I do have a wide variety of experience. I've never pulled a box van or a reefer, but in the whole flatbed open deck world, I've pulled just about everything, a lot of oversized stuff, and one thing or the other. So I thought, well, maybe I can create something. Going back, my wife has a YouTube channel. Her name is Obsessive Prepper AZ, and she's been doing YouTube for about 10 years, and she does a lot of preparedness stuff. Doomsday prepper things, and you know, survivalist and canning, and having a background in the military surplus world, she has a lot of knowledge about this stuff, far more than the average guy that thinks he knows everything. I can promise you that. But so she had built up about, I don't know, 22,000 subscribers or something, and she's had a lot of fun with it. And she told me, why don't you start a YouTube channel? So we started thinking about it the last couple of months. And granted, I don't know anything about it, but she does. She knows a lot. And so she helped me build this channel. And she's been pressuring me to put out content. And I've found every excuse under the sun of why. But for those of you in the trucking world, you understand that there's just days where it's hectic and we got to hustle bustle. And so I have a lot of content saved. And she's helping me put those videos out. And we're going to try to cover a broad spectrum of things. My life's journey in the trucking world, do some vlogs, blogs. Not quite sure I know exactly what all that is, but anyhow, you'll hear me ramble a little bit. We're going to have some good discussions. I hope that we can be positive, we can learn from one another, and just share our experiences. I will tell you going forward, I believe in God. I'm not the most religious guy in the world, but I definitely believe in God. I'm a conservative, very pro-Second Amendment, pro-law enforcement. Had a thin blue line bracelet on my wrist for about 20 years in some form or another before it was popular and cool. People even knew what it was. But I believe in doing the right thing, regardless of the cost. Sometimes it bites me in the butt, but I'm definitely an honest guy. I love my family. I'm a husband, dad, grandfather, and you'll see some of my family as we go along this adventure. And you know, huge thanks out there to my wife, Obsessive Prepper AZ, again, because she's the one that got this going, and we're going to see how far we can go. Sky's the limit with a positive mind, that's for sure. So, hope you enjoy the ride. And oh, the last thing was the My Way on the Highway. This kind of goes back to me not liking to be told what to do. So instead of it's my way or the highway, I came up with My Way on the Highway. And so, kind of clever, I think. I don't know. Who knows? Might be stupid. But hopefully we can learn from one another and have some good discussions and debates. And just be safe and have fun along the way. We'll see you on the back haul.